Generation 911, How to Evaluate Communications and Recording Technologies. My name is Greg Cummings, and I'm the Training Director here at VPI, and I'm going to be your host today. We've developed this educational presentation to help share our knowledge of Next Generation 911 initiatives and the key steps and elements crucial to selecting and implementing a successful NG 911 communications and recording solution. Just so everyone knows, to avoid interruptions, all attendees have been placed in listen-only mode. If you have any questions during the webcast, please type them into the GoToMeeting question box on the right side of your screen. We'll try to answer as many of these questions as possible at the end of the webcast. I'm pleased to introduce the Public Safety Solutions experts, Dick Bucci, Guy Clinch, and Patrick Botz. They're going to be our three presenters today. Dick Bucci is a senior consultant with the Pelorus Group and has over 25 years of experience in the communications industry. Mr. Bucci has focused his research on the public safety emergency communications, contact centers, speech recognition, and quality assurance markets. Mr. Bucci's background includes the senior management positions at Comdow Corporation, Nortel Networks, and others. Significant accomplishments include Nortel Networks' entry into the U.S. SMB markets and managing the relaunch of a vertical market solution at Comdow. Mr. Bucci's keen insights have been quoted in such periodicals as the Washington Post, Individual Investor, Investor's Business Daily, Speech Technology Magazine, and CRM Today. Mr. Bucci has a Master's of Business Administration from the Weatherhead School of Management, Case Western Reserve University, and a Bachelor's of Business Administration from Kent State University. Our second speaker today will be joined by Dick is going to be joined by Guy Clinch. He's the Senior Solutions Manager at Avaya and has been with them for almost 30 years. He's served solutions communications problems for clients in a career that has included positions at Lucent Technologies and AT&T. Guy is a frequent spokesperson, commentator, and serves on numerous industry panels and committees. He is the incoming chairman of the National Association of State Technology Directors, Corporate Affiliate Council. He's also a member of the National Emergency Number Association, or NENA, and the Association of Public Safety Communications Officials International, or APCO. He also serves as the Avaya champion of the International Alliance of Avaya Business Users. Mr. Clinch is a graduate of the Harvard University. And we're also joined by Patrick Botz. Patrick is the Vice President of Solutions Marketing at VPI. For over 7 years with VPI, he's been responsible for working with customers to help them affordably capture and analyze their customer interactions and optimize their operational and workforce performance. He's an active NENA and APCO member, and his work has been published in several public safety industry periodicals, including APCO Public Safety Communications, Emergency Number Professional, and Mission Critical Communications. Patrick holds an MBA from Pepperdine University and a BSc in Engineering from Arizona State University. Next. So now let me take a moment to talk about today's agenda. Today, Dick Bucci from the Pelorus Group will introduce you to an important next generation 911 drivers, initiatives, and processes. Guy Clinch from Avaya will discuss the best practices and technologies to overcome geographic and technical boundaries with an IP integration. He'll talk about how to effectively handle multimedia communications and how to map NG 911 into your priorities and build a roadmap for success. Patrick from VPI will then discuss the best practices and key technology considerations for effectively capturing, managing, evaluating, and sharing multimedia incident information to improve emergency response speed and accuracy. Also, if you would like to use the information you learned today for your internal presentations, the presentation slides have been made available to download at the following website, www.vpi-corp.com/NG911. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Dick Bucci.
Well, thank you, Greg, and my thanks to all of you for attending today's event. We understand your time is very valuable, but we certainly plan to make your commitment to this presentation very worthwhile. Let's start by addressing the very fundamental question of why we need NG, or Next Generation 911, in the first place. I think this statement from the Department of Transportation, Intelligent Transportation Systems, pretty well sums it up. The nation's 911 system, based on decades-old technology, cannot handle the video, text, images, and other data that are increasingly common in personal communications. To add some backdrop to that, the current 911 system is over 30 years old. It was originally designed for an analog world and where all contacts were primarily or almost exclusively to traditional analog telephones. 30 years ago, the cell phone did not exist. Many, if not most people, were still using rotary telephones, and these were usually attached telephones. So it's a very different world we're in today. Notwithstanding that, the system has worked very well over the years. It's estimated there are now 6,200 PSAPs in the United States, and these cover 99% of the nation's populations and handle 240 million calls annually. However, it can be improved, and it will be improved through NG911. One issue is the limited types of data that can be delivered to the PSAP with each call. And we'll talk in more detail about some of the distinctions between today's 911 environment and the one envisioned by NG911. And NENA first identified the need for NG911 in 2000. They started development in 2003. Since 2006, the U.S. Department of Transportation, championed through the Intelligent Transportation Systems Division of DOT, and with the support and involvement of NENA and over 30 other organizations, including leading vendors like Avaya and VPI, have worked together to develop specifications and put together a program which will prove to be very successful in improving emergency response effectiveness. Next slide, please. Oh, okay. I guess we're there. What's driving NG911? Well, to give you more detail on what NG911 is, it's basically, and you can look through the slide here, but it's primarily a collection of technologies and best practices that enable emergency contacts from any communications device via internet protocol-based networks. DOT and others are working on the standardized interfaces as we speak, and we've come a long ways. A final specification was prepared in March. The PSAP of the future will be able to collect and utilize data from numerous devices, including such things as the advanced automatic collision notification systems, which are installed in many vehicles today, media alert systems, and other sensors of all types. You'll be able to transfer 911 calls, both voice and data, throughout the network. Calls will be directed immediately to the PSAP that is closest to the incident and best prepared to handle it. This will be intelligent routing, which will cross jurisdictional boundaries in the interest of improving response levels. All interactions will be private and secure. Many factors are driving the move toward NG911. I'm just going to share a few factoids with you to help underline the importance of this initiative. And some things we may not be aware of, but one is that about 20% of every household in the United States today relies exclusively on wireless communications. Now, a lot of progress has been made in introducing wireless to PSAPs, but there's still a long ways to go in terms of phase 2 rollout. Another important development is the ability of cell phones to capture still and full motion video. Just think about what a wonderful asset this would be to call takers if they could not only get the voice of the caller but also see the incident in real time. Text messaging has become a real big deal, especially with the young people. It's estimated there's 110 billion text messages transmitted every month, or an average of 14 per day per cellular customer. I have a feeling that number is much higher for teenagers. VoIP is starting to become a mainstay in terms of communications channels. We now have over 20 million households subscribing to Vonage and Comcast and other VoIP services. And there are some issues with PSAPs being able to capture and collect and correctly identify VoIP calls. These will be addressed in NG911. Telematics is a very important step forward in terms of emergency response. It's estimated OnStar alone has 4 million subscribers, and of course there's other services as well. These work today by calling a call center, which in turn has to then contact the individual PSAP. If we could speed that process using the the VoIP network, then that would mean faster and more accurate response. And finally, we need to do more for the hearing and speech impaired, and text messaging is a tremendous solution for the issues with the speech and hearing impaired. And this next visual, we're going to simply contrast the 911 system of today with what's envisioned with next-gen and 911 in the future. You're going to see many differences starting with the nature of the query. Virtually all calls today are via analog lines, some growing number over cellular lines. Next-gen 911 will process data inputs from many sources that we indicated. It could be voice, could be text, could be email, could be video information, it could be ACN or automatic crash notification information. Much more data points to help the call taker quickly assess the situation and help dispatchers send the right people to the right place at the right time. Today's system requires transfers by voice. Yes, you can transfer a call to the dispatcher or to the emergency response or respondent, but you cannot see the data. If you can transfer both the data and the voice simultaneously and share that among all the emergency response people that are involved, that would be very valuable, including such information as mapping and individual identifiers of the information, such as their specific location, any health issues they may have that may have been transmitted over the network. You'll be using more intelligent call routers. Today, calls come to the PSAP and they're sent to the available agent, but what if there's a spike and a lot of calls are happening at the same time, maybe a major accident or hazardous waste spill or something has occurred, storms occurred, and the call center is flooded with 911 calls. You can intelligently send the overflows to other 911 centers with the network of the future. And this next slide, I won't attempt to go through this in any detail. I just wanted to show you, the scope of the project. You'll see the prominence of the internet on this slide and how that's become the channel of choice for getting data from many sources to the PSAP and to others. The NG911 vision relies on an emergency services IP network, the acronym ESINet, to deliver voice, video, text, and data calls to the PSAP. These will be using the protocol of Session Initiation Protocol, or SIP. You might also use the IP Multimedia Subsystem, IMS is the abbreviation for that, which also incorporates SIP. Right now, as we mentioned before, Nina and others are working on the functional standard interfaces that will be used. One of the demands or goals of the specification is to rely on commercial off-the-shelf hardware and software, or COTS. This was to continue to encourage open architecture and to reduce costs at the PSAP level. A proof of concept was completed in 2008, so we know that it works, and of course we're in the steps toward rolling it out, and this will take many years. No one's expecting it's going to happen overnight. And there will be investments. This visual here outlines 4 different scenarios for a rollout model over a 20-year horizon. The models considered a hybrid. The hybrid approach is where you would have some combination of a coordinated, uniform rollout and things as they are today. A uniform rollout where there's kind of a master plan and everyone subscribes to it. Or we continue as we are using the baseline model we have today, which will be a little slower, but it certainly retains the autonomy of every PSAP and will cost a little bit more. In any event, regardless of the range of estimates for the made by the Department of Transportation is from 1.5 to 2.3 million per PSAP, and we simply took the total number and divided by 6,300 PSAPs, so obviously it's going to vary tremendously depending on the size of your operation. Operating costs will be basically the same as they are today. We don't anticipate any changes in headcount. But there will be some savings. There will be some savings from using off-the-shelf components, using the IP infrastructure. Makes it much more cost-effective to add positions or change positions. As far as funding, there's some consideration of grant programs by the U.S. Department of Transportation and also Department of Commerce. There's legislation now to develop PSAP grants to speed the migration to E911. But in the end, it's going to be the responsibilities of the states, really, to help raise the funding and help manage the rollout in cooperation with all the many players that are involved in this picture. Moving on, we're going to summarize. Now, this is by no means a comprehensive list, but these are some of the highlights of the types of infrastructure changes, improvements, if you will, that will be required at the PSAP level. One is a multimedia call router. Most PSAPs today use analog or digital PBXs, even key systems for the very small PSAPs. These will need to be replaced by IP compliant servers. Virtually every manufacturer makes products that are IP based, and in fact this has become the norm today, and their IP based switches are outselling by far the TDM systems of the past. There will be some new investments in network hardware and software. Could mean gateways or more routers and servers, all to talk to each other. A very important investment will be replacing or upgrading, in most cases perhaps replacing, your current interaction recorder. Recorders can capture voice from any source, including cell phones and VoIP, but most recorders today that are in place do not capture screen actions in real time, so it's difficult to put together a complete replication of the incident. Also, unless the recorder is specially equipped, it cannot accurately capture identifiers with the incoming call, so the call can be tagged by required information, such as the name of the call taker, the time, date, type of incident, etc. The visionaries of NG911 are calling for a human-machine interface, or HMI. This will be a screen and software that basically presents the call taker with all the information they need in one view. The aim is to reduce the need to call up windows or different applications. The intelligence system will bring up data in front of you so the call taker can see all the caller identification information, any telematics data, mapping information, and share that with others to speed response time. So that basically wraps up my presentations. Now it's my honor to introduce Guy to explain what Avaya is doing and what ideas they may have for improving NG911 rollout as we move along.
Well, thank you very much, Dick. I appreciate the great intro and the information that you've shared, and I'm going to try to build upon some of the things you said as we talk about the evolution to next generation 911. And key to the evolution to next generation 911 is a new set of protocols that are based in the IP world, and one of those significantly important ones is the session initiation protocol, and I'll talk a little bit about why that's important going forward. So, next slide, please. So, Dick talked about some of the functionality changes that you're seeing occur today and the ways that people's devices have changed and the greater functionality that they have, and also within the networks that carry those, lots of changes have occurred. And really underlying that all is a significant transition that's going on from our traditional world of circuit-switched, connection-oriented communications. So in the past, when we made a telephone call, for instance, that went over technologies referred to as circuit-switched and connection-oriented, because in essence what we were doing was dialing a telephone number and creating a virtual connection between two devices. And it's almost as if somebody had strung a string or a wire between those two devices, and they're based on a set of protocols that were very well known, that were very much in and of themselves. That is, they didn't interoperate very well with other protocols. And today, what's happening is that the network underlying all of our communications is dramatically changing. Next slide, please. And we're going from yesterday's world of circuit-switched and connection to a world of packet-switched and connectionless. And that's a fundamental difference that has a great deal of impact upon not only the way that we do business, but the quality of the information that's available to us and the ways in which we can leverage the underlying infrastructure. So it's what's responsible for things like smartphones that allow you to go on a web browser on a smartphone and see a telephone number and put your cursor on that telephone number and click on it and then have your phone dial. We're seeing the convergence of the physical attributes of the phone with the software applications that are carried upon it. And this is this paradigm of packet-switched and connectionless really transcends the entire telecommunications infrastructure that's in place, and it's making a very significant change to what's possible and how we're able to both organize our capabilities behind utilizing those technologies, as well as opening up a whole new set of opportunities for new sources of information that dramatically improve the way that our ability to be able to respond to emergency situations. Coming with that, though, is also the potential for what has been referred to as information anarchy, and so there is now a need for a new set of tools to be able to make sure that the people who need the information have the information they need when they need it in the right format, and we're not shoveling all kinds of information to participants in the process of providing public safety services who don't need it. So that human-machine interface that Dick talked about is going to be a significantly important part of the process and evolution of next generation. And it's also going to be something that's going to be very much tailored to the individual and the individual function. So there won't be one single monolithic human-machine interface. There will be many iterations of that dependent upon the role that people play and the tools that they need in order to be able to be increasingly effective in doing their job. Next slide, please, Patrick. So along with that fundamental technology transition that's occurring from our connection-oriented and to the packet-switched connectionless environment, the nature of the telephone call is changing, right? Because now the telephone call is not just a voice conversation. It's a communication session that is now very much different than it was in the past. And so the infrastructure that we have in place that is analog-based and voice-based is really out of sync with the times and the way that most people communicate. And so it's in many ways providing problems for people who wish to communicate in different ways. And you know, I think often the first thing that comes to mind is young people and SMS text messaging. But all along, you know, before that technology became available, there were communities of people who were, in a way, second-class citizens to people who can dial a telephone and use their voice. So people with disabilities who have to go through alternative means to be able to report an emergency. The transition that's going on in the technology is something that's going to dramatically change that circumstance. Next slide, please. And that transition is to have us now move from the telephone call of the past to a telecommunications session of the future. And so you're seeing a picture of a web page on your screen, and the reason I'm putting that up is to really draw the comparison between the experience that you have if you're sitting down at your computer and being able to access a web page. Well, the telephone call, quote unquote, of yesterday is becoming the telecommunications session of today. And so now the communication session is much more like the experience you have when you're interacting with a web page. And so, next slide, please. On a particular page that you may have accessed with a URL or Uniform Resource Locator, you may have various different pieces of information available. Perhaps there's the ability for you to click on a spot on the page and bring up a video that will play. Next slide, please. Perhaps there's a set of animations that are being fed to this page, and so rather than just a piece of static information, there's some video that you can see. Next slide. And then there's the ability to be able to interact and be able to click on a link and be able to be taken to another place. And so how does this all tie together with the idea of communications in the communication session is that in very much the same way that you experience the ability to have multiple pieces of information in multiple forms that are actually served to you from multiple different places. And so perhaps that video came to us from New York, and perhaps that flash animation came to us from California, and perhaps that piece of information that if you clicked on the link about the H1N1 would take you to the Center for Disease Control. We're no longer tied to the geographic placement of the information. We don't have to have all of the information that we need on a database that's sitting in our particular office. We can now use the telecommunications session to reach out over IP-based protocols to be able to retrieve that information and bring it and present it in a way in which the people who need it can use it when they need it. Next slide, please. And so this is also going to have an impact, a dramatic impact, on the process of providing public safety services. And so that fundamental of the telecommunications session now transforms today's experience where we have typically a phone call coming in and at best a computer telephony integration application that will link together some information. As good as that's been for us, it now becomes significantly more powerful because of the ability to be able to access new and different forms of information. Next slide, please. And so things that will become possible, depending upon the person who's using it, is to be able to bring video into the conversation, bring in other forms of information. Next click, please. And so, for instance, accompanying that telephone call is the ability to be able to reach into geospatial information, whether that's mapping data, whether that's live video feeds, whether that's somebody generating a video feed that's coming into the process of public safety response, next slide, whether that's reaching into systems that are continuously becoming more and more valuable, geographic information systems and other databases, that all of this information can now be layered into various different experiences for various different people who are involved in the process of providing for public safety services. Now, do we want all of this information, as Dick talked about in the human-machine interface, cluttering up the screen of the call taker on a Friday night in the middle of the summer when there's a full moon? Well, absolutely not. But what we do want is the ability for various players within the public safety chain of care to have what they need when they need it. And so one of the really important things about the transition to next generation 911 is the ability for us to be able to build rules and to be able to create scenarios that present certain players with certain information. So perhaps we have a staff of several people, and one of those people is fluent in sign language. Well, what we will want to do in the future is establish that sign language skill set as a specific skill, and then when calls come in based on information that's carried along in the telecommunications session from somebody who speaks with sign language, be able to direct that call to the person who can interpret it and give them the set of tools they need. So the idea is that this transition is going to give us a great deal of flexibility and opportunity to do things in significantly different ways than we've done them in the past. And it's really our imagination that is going, the extent of which we exercise understanding these things and applying them, that is going to be able to create the dramatic improvement that the future will bring. Next slide, please. And so today's world, getting back to today's world, one of the other fundamental differences that's going to occur is that the way in which that information becomes available is going to change. And so I know this audience is a large number of public safety practitioners, so I won't go into this in great deal, but this slide is to show you how today we're really very much tied to the legacy infrastructure that, in fact, in many cases, when you talk about the left-hand side of this diagram, out in the public switch telephone network, in many cases this network, it doesn't really exist any longer. In the service provider world today, we have robust sets of technologies that are based on Internet Protocol technologies and other packet switch technologies that make it possible for highly efficient transmission and reliable transmission of all kinds of different communications. But today, because of the way the public safety environment has fallen behind the times, those networks are forced to go back to the legacy analog protocols of the past and maintain them. And so the way a call gets to the public safety answering point today is really sort of anachronistic to the way in which the networks themselves really want to operate. And it's based on analog technologies and analog protocols that make what's in the gray box there within the PSAP really kind of messy in comparison to what it can be in the new world. And that's one of the great promises, is to be able to simplify the infrastructure requirements behind public safety. There is going to be additional complexity, absolutely, in being able to think through the potential of the new tools and put them in the right place. But those are things that are solvable. The point is that, next slide, please, as we transition to next generation 911, the underlying infrastructure gets much cleaner. In the gray boxes, you see, as Dick talked about, the emergency services interconnect network that now becomes based on packet switch technologies and protocols, including the session initiation protocol, that make the access to information much more streamlined and much more efficient, and also broadens the ability to be able to reach into new forms of communications and new forms of information that will dramatically increase the effectiveness of the delivery of public safety. Now, outside that gray box, things look a little bit messier, but really it's what I encourage you to do is to look at that with a sense of opportunity. So across the bottom is the legacy network that we envision is going to have to be maintained for quite some time into the future as we transition, as you are able to get the funding and build the systems that are necessary to make the transition to next generation. So we're going to continue to care for that legacy network, but at the same time we're going to be able to now layer on new forms of information and new sources of communication that are going to dramatically improve, for one thing, situational awareness. And so being able to take advantage of lots of different inputs, whether that's security cameras, whether that's biohazard detectors, all kinds of other information that now can be amalgamated and brought into a process of increased effectiveness in decision making and increased effectiveness in execution. Next slide, please. And so in addition to the ability to be able to bring in all kinds of new sources of information, there's also the increased ability to be able to distribute that information in meaningful ways that are specifically tailored to the people who are going to use them. So I talked a little bit about this before, but certainly the person who's on the front lines, who's answering the calls on a Friday night, we probably don't want them to, spending a lot of time trying to figure out what it is it in the dark shadows of that security camera. We want them to be efficient in the process that they need to be, which is answering the person's communication, identifying the location, and linking them with the resources that are going to help. But other players in the public safety chain of care who all have needs for information, who today have very limited sources of information in which to be able to make command and control decisions and execute response, as well as people like political leaders who need information to be able to make decisions and communicate. Tomorrow's world is going to make that flexibility much more robust, with the ability to be able to make sure that those who need certain pieces of information get the information they need in a real-time basis, so that the speed and accuracy and effectiveness of decision-making can be improved, and the effectiveness of execution can be dramatically improved. So a great new world comes with this transition to next generation 911, but also some new requirements around being able to manage this, being able to report on it, being able to record these transactions, being able to make sure that when it's necessary that those transactions can all be reassembled into a legally defensible document that then can be used in the ways in which it needs to be used, whether that's being able to do diagnostics and train for the future, whether that's being able to present that information in a prosecutorial sense. And so the idea of being able to manage and report and record and present results are all very, very important aspects of this new communications transition that we're going through. Next slide, please. Other things that become possible for us is new forms of organization. So today there are roughly 6,500 public safety answering points, although there is some limited ability in certain places to be able to collaborate. Really are standalone islands of communication in and of themselves. So sometimes the best possible thing you can do is transfer a call from one place to the other, but critical information that is necessary or that's been collected along the way often gets left behind. So next slide, please. What is going to be possible for us is new forms of organization based on this IP packet-switched fundamental that allow us to be able to geographically distribute functionality, that allow us to be able to increase the reliance and resilience of an infrastructure. Next slide, please. The ability to be able to make sure that we can really take advantage of all the resources that are available to us, whether it's regional consolidation, whether it's being able to transfer not only a call from the geographically adjacent public safety answering point, but all the call and all the critical information that goes along with it, as well as being able to track and report and record and be able to have all of those management tools that are necessary. So there's a great future ahead of us. There's a great deal of work for us to be able to get to where we need to. And the other thing is there's a great deal of expertise available to be able to help. And our friends, including VPI, are able to help us move through and get the tools that we need and put them in place. So I'd like now to turn it over to, oh, excuse me, I have one more point I'd like to make. Next slide, please. And so also, there is the need for skills and expertise, as I said, and so there are all kinds of services. One more click there, please. There are also all kinds of services that layer upon this, and so some of the things to think about is next generation 911 consulting and planning, the consulting and planning around communications continuity and increased resilience, looking at the advanced architecture and being able to solve for that, being able to actually do the work to get it implemented, looking at all the third-party integrations that are necessary to be able to tie all this capability together and get from it what we need. And then, of course, there's the support and management that's critically necessary to make sure that in the long run these systems are there when we need them, as we need them. So now I'd like to turn over the floor to Patrick Botz, and he'll talk to you a little bit about some of the recording and quality assurance considerations of next generation 911.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Guy. That was fantastic. And thank you, Dick, for the wonderful introduction. Just a brief introduction to VPI for those of you who don't know much about us. We're an established company with a rich 15-year history of serving not only the public safety industry, but enterprises as well. We have several offices throughout North America and multiple sales and support partners throughout the world. We serve over 1,200 customers daily, including Washington, D.C., UCC, LA County Sheriff, City of Phoenix Fire, California Highway Patrol, City of Detroit, the Armed Forces, and several other federal, state, and local agencies throughout North America and the world. Washington, D.C. Unified Communications Center, just wanted to spotlight them for a minute. They're a VPI and Avaya customer, and they're one of the most advanced communication centers in the world. They recently won the NASCIO Outstanding Achievement Award for Business Continuity and Disaster Recovery by establishing a centralized communication centers to improve interoperability and reduce response time to more than 3.5 million calls received annually. We interface and record over 500 channels of landline and radio communications at their primary and backup locations for over 30 agencies, including their police, fire, EMS, Department of Homeland Security, 311, Department of DOT, and several other agencies throughout our national capital region jurisdictions. We're a longstanding member of NENA and APCO, and our products are available for purchase on the GSA schedule. We've also been partnering with Avaya for 8 years now at the gold level, and recently have been honored to receive the 2009 Hot Product of the Year Award by APCO International. In the midst of all the PSAP consolidation and changes that are going on, we're all being asked to do more with less. Therefore, it's even more important than ever before to ensure that we maximize the productivity and effectiveness of our current employees and resources. APCO and many other public safety organizations are really pushing heavily quality assurance because there's tremendous value in reviewing interactions and establishing a quality management program. As you roll out your NG 911 initiatives in the upcoming months and years, quality assurance program and QA software tools can be invaluable to helping you monitor the adoption and success of your initiatives. Audio recording is a mandatory requirement for the majority of PSAPs, and it's really vital that you consider the architecture goals like Dick Bucci mentioned for NG911 when you're implementing a new recording and quality assurance system. Your recording system, if it doesn't already, must use open standards and protocols and be able to adapt to evolving needs to interoperate with your future technologies without replacement. Proprietary-based recording systems, they'll really become a thing of the past with next generation 911. And I'd like to talk about and better understand the key elements of centralized incident information management. The first key element is really audio recording. All audio and related data coming into the communication center from different sources such as analog phones, IP phones, traditional and trunk radio, and more should be recorded. As Guy recently discussed, NG911 will use the standards-based SIP protocol, so it's really important to make sure that your recording system will be able to support SIP and open standards to support universal information exchange capabilities. We've replaced hundreds of legacy voice logging and quality assurance systems in recent years, and what our customers tell us that is, as they enable more capabilities offered by their new voice over IP communications platform, often the ability of their recording system to leverage those capabilities is decreased dramatically. Some recording systems can only record audio in very specific environments and have a difficult time capturing all the important call and metadata that you need to easily find the interactions that you're looking for. And then some recordings just simply hit a wall and they can't even record IP telephony, radio, and multimedia communications in certain environments. It's interesting. I see several new RFPs or requests for proposals coming out every week asking for recording systems that won't be able to handle the transition to NG911 and will be obsolete in a year or two. So it's very important to do your homework these days. The lowest bid recording system may not be the best solution for your evolving environment and future interoperability plans. So I personally always recommend looking at a long-term total cost of ownership versus upfront investment cost alone. The next key element to centralized information management is the ability to record and replay multiple console screens to include CAD application screens, mapping screens, automatic vehicle location screens, and any other screens. This is very valuable when reviewing incident handling. Reviewing the screens that your call takers interact with, along with the call audio that you're familiar with these days, helps expose and improve application navigation and workflow processes, and really helps reduce call and post-call handling time. It's also very valuable in recreating the entire incident. Here's just a sample of a console mapping screen that was captured and appears during replay of the incident. This will help you better recreate and assess the incident. The third key element to a centralized information management architecture under NG911 is screen analytics. Screen analytics is a relatively new but very powerful and very cost-effective way to capture and tag anything from your console screen applications to the recorded call. So very valuable to tag incident numbers and incident types to the calls. That way, it's much easier to find your calls when you're looking for them. And the systems, the newer tools, will automatically pull all calls related to that same incident number together, so you don't have to spend a lot of time hunting and pecking for those calls. Just a sample of what that looks like. Essentially, when you're playing back the call in the media player, you'll be able to see, the start of the incident number, the incident type, anything else along the way that you want to capture from your applications, whether it be the CAD system, whether it be the AVL system, or whatever. You can pull and tag to the call, and it really helps, like I said, automatically pull all calls together with the same incident, and then it helps you jump to the points of interest for something happen that was noted by either they went into a certain application or they entered a certain application field within the application. The fourth element is really the ability to upload images, documents, maybe scanned in case files or videos. So there's a lot of people out there, as Guy mentioned and Dick mentioned, taking pictures on cell phones, videos on cell phones, using camcorders, and the ability to upload those images, documents, and videos into your centralized incident data mart is very key. It's going to dramatically help you with your quality and training in terms of being able to visualize exactly what happened, and when you're reproducing the incident, it's going to greatly improve your evidence than just delivering the audio files alone. So, this would be just a view of what it would look like in terms of importing a file. So it's time synchronized, so when a file is uploaded, at that point, if it's a PDF, it'll open. If it's an image, it'll open. If it's a video, it'll open at that point. And here you can see, here's just an example of a dual view with the files imported. On the left, you can view the entire incident, and on the right, you can analyze the incident call taker by call taker to see any documents, files, or images relevant to that communication. And again, it's time synced, so you can get a complete view of exactly what happened and when. And then the final component of centralized NG911 incident management, and this is constantly evolving, is text messaging and email, and then surveillance video. Those are kind of the final two pieces. These are evolving and will most likely be direct integrations. There's no standards in terms of right now what text messaging systems or email systems will be supported universally. So right now, typically each of these are different depending on your PSAP. So there'll be a direct integration to whatever system, text messaging or email, and you know, we'll be working on developing direct integrations to the major video providers as well. So these are kind of out in the future, but definitely on our radar, and ones that we're looking very closely into and working with the NG911 committee on as well. Then it's very important, incident information management also means being able to share information quickly, as Guy mentioned, during or after the event to improve collaboration and case handling. The first piece, desktop instant recall tools, enable your call takers to quickly access any difficult to understand calls or radio transmissions with the click of a mouse. Call takers with rights are limited to recalling just their own or most recent dispatch telephone conversation. So currently a lot of PSAPs are using like a box to recall calls, and they can only access telephone conversations. With the new software tools, you're able to access any recent radio or telephone communications, even if it's not one that you handled, if you have rights. Should also be easy to email a file or email a secure link to the recording, or export an entire incident as a self-contained evidence package. Information shared needs to be complete and not partial, so that agencies and units that receive the information with that you're sending them to and that they receive are all on the same page. And complete incident recreation also greatly assists in more convincing evidence, which will help you increase the rate of DA cases closed. And of course, with all these, we always recommend first emailing, if possible, a link to the file or the incident package, because that way they have to authenticate against the system. If you do have to export or save the files or the entire incident, you can make them password protected. So the nice thing is the files are government used AES 256 encrypted, and they're digitally watermarked. So there's a signature applied to the content being shared. And then along with security, it's very important that your system is able to give you reports on audit trail reporting, audit trail records, so you can do a full trace audit to determine who accessed any recording, any file in the system, and when, either for playback, export, or any other critical event. This is a sample of a heat map that you can see and see who has done exactly what within the system, whether it be login or playing or anything. All that detail is captured, and that's very important, especially with NG911, because there's so much more going on, and you want to be able to figure out exactly who did what and when for security purposes. And then quality assurance and training, as I mentioned, is being pushed very heavily by APCO. Integrated quality assurance is really critical in improving the efficiency and accuracy of emergency communications. It helps improve productivity and reduce your staff turnover. With these new web-based assessment tools that automatically assign the appropriate evaluation form to you based on the type of incident or the type of call, you can now objectively evaluate individual call taker quality or entire incidents, regardless of how many PSAPs, units, or jurisdictions are involved, from the perspective of the citizens, to make sure that the processes you're using are working properly and within compliance. And by having incident type, remember pulling incident type from your application, from your CAD application, tagged to recordings, you can now evaluate calls by incident type very quickly. So you can pull up all calls. For example, let's say you wanted to listen to a high percentage or all calls related to a certain type of incident, such as domestic violence, medical-related calls, or homicides. Those are very easy to find and just search for and pull up all those calls, and you can share them with the parties that are interested in reviewing those calls. You can then use the results of your quality assurance assessment scores to improve your training and automatically assign targeted supplemental coaching to those call takers that need improvement in certain areas identified by your QA evaluation forms. So as you can see, there's a sample of a QA form on the right. As you go through and answer the questions, each question has a skill associated with it. So depending on how they score on certain skills, whether it be call handling or empathy or whatever it may be, you can send them targeted training if they fall below those certain skills related to those questions. And again, if you're recording audio, the audio will show up with the timeline of exactly what happened. If you're recording audio and multiple video monitors, that'll also show up, and you'll be able to see that while you're evaluating the call. And then at the bottom is just a sample of the targeted training courses that are assigned to the call takers to take based on their performance within their QA evaluation forms. So that concludes my part of the presentation. I'd like to turn it over to Greg Cummings for questions.
All right, thank you so much, Patrick, and thank you to Guy and Dick as well. It was a very informative webcast, and I know everyone's gotten a lot of great information from it so far. So what we can do now is look to open it up to any questions that you might have. And again, please direct your questions to the GoToWebinar panel on the right-hand side of your screen. And if you have a question for a specific individual, either Guy, Dick, or Patrick, please include their name in the question so I can direct it to the right person. Also, you'll see the information on your screen is how you can contact Guy and Patrick, and also some other information about how to join us on Twitter or Facebook if you'd like to follow us there. So let's see if we have any questions coming in. I'm just going to wait and see here. Okay, so for right now, it doesn't look like I've got any questions coming in. So we're gonna hold the line and wait and see if we do get any questions that come in. For those of you that have joined us that are looking to drop the line, if you don't have any questions, we just want to thank you very much on behalf of the Pelorus Group, Avaya, and VPI for taking the time to join us in the webcast today. We hope you got some valuable information, and please feel free to reach out to us privately after this webcast if you have any additional specific questions or want to follow up in person or get some additional information.
Greg, I see a few questions.
Oh, there are a couple coming in? Okay.
Yeah. And Guy, maybe you could take this one. What is a soft phone?
Yes, a soft phone is a software application that will emulate the functionality of a telephone. And there are lots of different versions of soft phones, from soft phones that you might use on your PC to speak using voice over IP technology and connect over the internet into the public switch telephone network, to soft phones that are software applications that are served from the network to a device. And so I use a couple of different soft phones, actually, one that's on my smartphone and another that's on my computer, and they both have the same feature and functionality. They just, whether I'm sitting at a desk or whether I happen to be out and about. And what those soft phones do is they actually authenticate back into my office telephone system and give me the feature functionality that I have from the office telephone system. And so I'm able to, for instance, host a conference call of 6 people. I'm able to conference call on individuals. I'm able to transfer a call, put a call on hold. The many hundreds of features that are available from that physical appliance that are on my desk in my office are also available to me no matter where I am, as long as I can bring up my computer or use my the application on my smartphone. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you, guys. Another question. In the analog world, we insisted on 5 nines of availability, and so far the IP world hasn't really come close to meet this. Is there anything you're doing to help resolve this?
Well, the IP world is a big world, certainly, and from Avaya's standpoint, when it comes to enterprise telephony, we do have 5 nines of reliability that our products carry. In fact, we were a little bit late in entering the market to bring in the technology of voice over IP, and we were late because we wanted to make sure that we were able to sustain that level of reliability that people had come to expect from Avaya. And so it depends on what you're the aspect of voice over IP that you're talking about. Some of the voice over IP applications that people might download from the internet and install on their laptop computer or home computer, and those can very many times be questionable. But when it comes to the application of in the enterprise telephony space, we call it IP telephony as opposed to voice over IP. When it comes to the implementation of IP telephony, actually what we're seeing is greater reliability and resilience than we had in the past, because we have fewer single points of failure than we had in the past. So in the past, if you lost power to your central location and the batteries on the UPS died and your PBX died, your phone ability to call died. In today's environment, where much more of the infrastructure can be distributed among geographic locations and can have resilience and reliability built in, from that standpoint, we're actually seeing IP telephony increase the reliability and resilience of communications.
Great, thank you. And then there'll be a lot of, with voice over IP, there may be fake calls associated or fake texts that come in. You talked about business rules. Can you explain how you guys plan on handling that so there's, not an overload of fake calls and fake texts coming in, things like that?
Yes, definitely. That's a significant challenge, and one that I believe industry is stepping up to solve in the same way that we've been, not 100% successful, but pretty successful in being able to deal with things like spam email. You're going to be able to see applications that are created that are going to help us to be able to filter out those malicious kinds of attacks that you see on that are started to occur with being able to spoof and voice over IP. We're at the beginning of our understanding of that. There's always a new bad guy out there with with way too much time on his hands to figure out how to make our lives miserable. But we also have a great deal of bright people that are working on the ability to filter those things out. And one of the things that IP-based technologies have for us is the ability to trace back fingerprints very often. And so when a bad guy doing something on the network might be able to escape for a certain amount of time, but eventually we're going to figure out the technology that's going to allow us to be able to track back and deal with it.
Great. Thank you, guys. It looks like that's all the questions we have today, and wanted to thank everyone for joining the webcast today and hope you found the event valuable. I will be following up with a link to the recorded webcast and a link where you can download the slides. Thanks so much and have a wonderful afternoon.